One of the things I hope to accomplish with the interviews section of my channel is to record and share some of the unique stories and perspectives existing throughout the coffee chain. This interview certainly meets that goal. Suar gives us an insight into the very unique culture of the Balinese people by sharing how the Wisnu Foundation works with villages throughout Bali. Doing business in Bali can be challenging for an expat. I know, I've tried. The biggest challenge I had was a mismatch of both communication and culture. My business partner and I failed to overcome these barriers, and the partnership suffered and ultimately failed as a result. I hope someday to produce a video or podcast to share that experience. But for now, enjoy the interview, and I hope you find it as enlightening and informative as I do. Okay, so in 3, 2, 1. Suar, thank you for sitting down with me. I appreciate it. It's been something we've been trying to put together for a while now.
That's right, yeah.
So you have a lot of interesting things going on. I wanted to talk to you, I think if we start at the big picture, like Wisnu, what you do for the various communities. Then we go into maybe Bali Coffee Lab, your new venture,
Right.
and then bring it into coffee production. I think that might be a good way to go about things. So what do you do with Wisnu? What do you have going on with them?
Well, the Wisnu Foundation actually, I and my friends established in 1993. It's already 28 years ago. We just celebrated the anniversary, 25th of May.
28 years.
28 years ago we established.
Mm.
It's quite a while actually.
Yeah.
The main goal or ideas at that time was how to deal with the environmental issues in Bali. Since Bali has been developed as a very touristic area, so as the nature of tourism industry is they need for sure resources, especially natural resources, as Bali is one of very famous tourist destination and a very small island. So of course we have a very limited resources. So that's why along the way we can see that a lot of conflict of interest in terms of using resources.
Yeah.
For instance, like water, like land use change, and then garbage issues also. Because tourism industry is not only bring the economic benefits, but also environmental and socio-cultural consequences in that sense.
Right.
So that's why the Wisnu Foundation try to work slowly, because as an NGO, in that times in 1993, it's quite difficult to be an NGO, non-government. When we do our activities within the authoritarian government at the time, so that we tactically we deal with the waste issues. So because it's very tangible, it's plastic already everywhere. The volume of waste is getting more and increase. And then the local community is not really aware yet about the characteristic of the waste, the new waste. Which formerly they deal mostly with natural waste, when they just traditionally the Balinese spatial setting is already designed dealing with natural waste, because in the backyard they have their own way of dealing with the natural waste, organic waste. It's almost zero waste. If we learn from the traditional way of dealing with the life, so that along the way, we learn a lot about the characteristics of the waste. We deal with the sources of the waste from tourism industry, because it's we can see the the waste from tourism industry contain of amount of plastic, cardboard, can, hazardous waste, papers, which actually, in a sense, I think the government planning is not ready yet dealing with that kind of fast growing, fast developing of the tourism industry with their own wastes. So that we conducted a kind of a brief incognito research, in tourism industry, for instance, where actually they throw or they dump their waste. In fact, actually, there are some kind of private haulers dealing with their waste. Then, actually, when we go deeper to the hotel, actually they sell their own waste because a lot of valuable and economical value within the waste. Actually, like if you drink from the can is still valuable, and then that's actually the reason from the accounting probably to sell their waste. But when they sold their waste, and the private hauler has no proper place how to deal with the separation and the picking the valuable material, and the rest, the residue, they just throw in the mangrove forest, and that's we found that's a lot of brand of international 5-star chains hotel scatter in the area. So that we use. We took a picture. We used the kind of way of negotiating with the hotel. Understanding about the management of the waste. They deal with their waste, and then we show them the picture of their own brand company. If this kind of practice you continue, that there is a law of international, the polluter must pay principle. Then you do a tourism business here, but you pollute the environment. This is not fair and not healthy, not safe for our island.
So you put pressure on them, and
we directly went to the general manager, showing them the fact, and then gradually we propose a kind of initiation. Why don't you manage your own waste? So then you can claim that your business is environmental and friendly or aware of the environment, by introducing a kind of MRF, material recovery facilities. So those local people who formerly as a private hauler, we develop their awareness and also doing a capacity building, so that they can improve their place, how they can separate the waste and how they can keep a record of the waste. Then the residue, how much, then and in the end, this is kind of a record report to the hotel. So they know how much plastic they use and how much carbon they use and how much waste, kind of wet, we consider like a dry and wet kind of waste. It's dry mostly like from paper, cardboard, aluminum can, glasses, everything. Wet is mostly from the restaurant. Right. So because here in Bali, people, I can say frankly speaking, as if we eat pork. There's the wet waste from the hotel is considered as kind of the first grade, 5-star hotel, first grade food. Even though there's still waste is still first grade. This goes to the pig fooder, and then the pig become very fat, healthy, and then it's kind of close the loop. We can the local livestock pig.
So you pick up the wet food waste from the hotels. This is a program that you've set up with Wisnu.
Yeah.
You pick up the waste and then you deliver it to farmers who are raising pigs.
Yeah, and then no, we make the concept, and then we develop the awareness and capacity of the private hauler, because we have to improve the places of the private hauler so that they can be what's it called, manageable, and also do a database and then make a communication with the hotel. So within the hotel also we do a kind of waste audit, how much how percentage of their occupancy, type of tourists, and then what kind of waste, so that we know that kind of a communication from the hotel to the private hauler or material recovery facilities. So then they can use this as kind of a communication. So through this kind of management, and also we also deal with the garden waste, for composting and then bring it back to the hotel. So through this concept, we actually push to the hotel. You have to pay this management. Otherwise, you cannot claim. This is your management. Because as formerly what's the fact that the private owner throwing their your waste to the mangrove forest, that's not healthy. Then it's growing. Yes, all chains hotel along Nusa Dua is getting involved with the concept. And until now, I think the government also try to copy in different ways, introducing to the community, to the cities, how they deal with that.
Yeah, I know that Bali has had some problems with, they have a love-hate relationship with the trash in Bali because there's no central management program for it. And I think that there was rumors about a European community, maybe a company, maybe German company, going to build incinerators to also generate power, but that didn't work out.
It didn't work out, because it's in Bali, it's being if you make a plan of how to centralize the waste, it's kind of the setting of Bali, and then also the setting of the urban in Bali. It's not like in the West, urban planning, it's all in based on the basic planning of the urban. But Bali is mostly used to be a kind of villages all for Bali. The setting will be quite difficult. That's a road sometimes it's not big enough, and then the traffic, this is a lot of issues along the way facing by the planner. But nowadays, the governor decree is already how to manage waste from the source. That's why they have from the source, from the family compound, and Banjar system, village system, introduced to develop their own management, mini management with.
So it's like a patchwork. Each Banjar collects their trash and does something with it differently than the next one, maybe.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's when we established 28 years ago, we actually make a kind of plastic pyramid, in Mundo. It's a kind of we think about, in the future, if you not seriously deal with that waste, there will be a kind of another enemy for the management. So that's quite 28 years ago is already reminding that. But nowadays it's already awareness, and the people kind of participate, and then also the mechanism of dealing with that is also developing, and also the political will from the government has already come together. Hopefully this island will be a better management in terms of waste management. But after 5 years from 1993, it's 1998 is a kind of big political issue in Indonesia. It's a Reformation kind of movement. So then our president, Mr. Suharto, stepped down. Then we orient our focus in the Wisnu Foundation, through the community empowering program. Before actually, if you go to the community, try to organize community, is kind of a dangerous spot. You are leftist or sort of kind of, but
Politics everywhere.
yeah, politics everywhere. And then we try to, the way we work in the Wisnu actually is being a Balinese who been taught as a local people through the practice of culture, way of life in Bali. It's where the concept of life in Bali is balance. It's balance. We have to respect of the nature. We have to respect the relationship between the social and human kind, and then also the God creator. How we make a kind of a balanced relationship in that sense. And I got this kind of actual balanced kind of conceptual life in Bali is after graduated from the Bogor Agricultural Institute as a young generation, a scholar, it's not really much aware about the value and the outstanding value of our tradition here in Bali. I used to work after graduated from Bogor Agricultural Institute. I used to work 5 years in Bali, location in Bali. It's with the Bali Sustainable Development Project. So it's kind of a twinning project between government of Indonesia and Canada through the University of Waterloo, York University, Yale University, Gajah Mada University here in Indonesia, and the University of Indonesia, and also as in association with local University Udayana here. It's kind of intense discussion and workshop discussing about sustainable development. So then, and because I work as a local staff and also being a field manager afterward, it's kind of this discussion and the workshop is kind of it's not new terminology for the formulation of way of life, our culture. It's being a Balinese kind of this is my own reflection. People talk big about this new terminology about sustainable development, but when I see deeply, this is the way of life, our ancestor, our inheritance of culture here in Bali.
You're already there.
Already there. We've been practicing. Then that's why I established the Wisnu Foundation also, and that's along the way, starting from the West, and now to the community after the Reformation. Community meaning that's because if we see Bali as an island, small island, it's a very kind of a unique island and a kind of well, I can say it's for the small island. The Bali island has 4 lakes. It is a kind of water reservoir, and then rice terraces, so beautiful. Beach, mountainous area is so close. It's kind of really convenient. It's being a Balinese kind of it's a time tunneling me. This island is. I've been also abroad to see the island from the distance. It's a beautiful place. It's and also this is a beautiful island. The concept of our ancestor kind of managed the island is through imply the concept of three Hita Karena. That's kind of three main thing that's make the life in balance and prosperous. So this is stuck in every villages. We have 1,493 villages all over Bali. Almost if you see the spatial of Bali, it's it's a kind of a puzzle of villages which practices their own balance concept. You know, it's a, why don't we try to, now this is the vision of the Wisnu Foundation. It's even though we live in the villages with way of our life, practicing the balance of life, and also if we can see now is how UNESCO give the outstanding value practices of subak system in Bali. You know, it's can become Bali become a subak system become world cultural heritage. You know, it's an outstanding value. Then through that experience and also digesting of the issues of tourism and what we have in Bali, so that's why we more serious to go to the villages, you know, as a kind of a way of you know, kind of rejuvenate kind of energy that's already live in the villages, you know. Because the Wisnu Foundation is not a big foundation. It's just a very small foundation. We have limited resources. We have limited human resources too. You know, but the way we do our vision, mission, and program through a kind of modeling concept. You know, we do work with very closely with villages who located in the mountainous area and also in the beach area and small island, and also very traditional villages, and then very villages that have very unique kind of local endemic production, for instance, like snake skin fruit or salak in Bali. So there we have a kind of various model. And then we do hope that this model can be replicated or in many villages.
So this is part of your community resource management program.
Yeah.
And you go in to a village and you look at their human capital, their land capital, all of the resources. You help them build models around their traditions.
Absolutely.
And then you try and replicate that.
Yeah, that's the idea, because we have very limited resources, capacity. But the way we do awareness is try to give them the model based on the perception, and also we through dialectica of participation with the community. So the first method we do is to do a participatory mapping. Yeah, why participatory mapping? Because, you know, if, like I mentioned earlier, if we talk about Bali as a small island, has a very limited resources. If you develop as a very fast-growing tourism industry with need a lot of resources and a lot of consequences, you have to talk with the. If you talk about natural resources, you have to talk about efficiency and effectiveness of the resources. And then along the way, it's not only the continuation of production, but also you have to think about the ecological integrity, how the balance of nature and activities.
It's an entire living system.
Yeah, and then also it's if you talk about prosperity in the concept, you have to talk about equity. You know, it's Badung, southern part, northern part, eastern part. It's not only the region but also the people. Yeah. Then, if you talk about the culture in Bali, you know, you have to talk about you know, there has to be a local participation, because the people who live in the villages bring the image of the island, you know, become a live way of life, you know. It has to be participation. Yeah. And also we talk about cultural integrity, because this is the way of life and living culture, you know. Then, and okay, like I saying how the harmony, integration as a balance has to be become part of the content in terms of planning.
But also progress, maju mapan.
Maju mapan, of course, because this people the won't make a definition about the definition about development. You know, what is development then? You know, it has to be a realization of the potential we have. Not only nothing here and everything come outside and then we disappear. You know.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, as a tactical strategy, you know, because this is the concern actually we have in the Wisnu Foundation. That's why we work closely with the villages through the participatory mapping. Normally, this is spatial mapping, because in Bali, you know, every village has their boundary, spatial boundaries. This is spatial boundaries because the belief in Bali, because you know, relation between human and nature is a very closely bonded. You know, it's a human is a microcosmos and the nature is a microcosmos. So this is the content of our nature is the same. You know, it's now if you go to the social kind of space of living, spatial is boundary. It's a bonded. You know, it's considered as a holy cosmic. You know, if you make pollution and you make bad thing in your space, and also you make bad thing in yourself. You know, we have to be aware about our boundary first. That's we call it in Hita Karena is palemahan. It's the space where we are living in that. You know, that's why, you know, there is a kind of a ritual ceremony, a big ceremony before Nyepi. Normally there's a kind of we call it a big ritual of ceremony before Nyepi. What is the name? Yeah? I forgot the name of the Nyepi. Because there is a kind of ogo and then a big
Panjor.
Yeah, panjor is in Galungan. So that's in tune with the way of life and the cyclic way of life, of belief, of ritual thing, you know. Then through if I talk about the history of introducing participatory mapping in the villages, it's quite, you know, from a very conventional way of doing it until now we're dealing with a very sophisticated through the GPS. You know, formally we use a very simple thing. For instance, we use a long tape, and then also we use we call it the compass, and then also we started actually in 1999.
Paper maps.
Yeah, paper maps, you know, millimeter block, we put in that and then digitize again and then to the computerized. That takes time.
Yeah.
And it's beyond awareness of the local people, you know, because we introduced why did we do that kind of a useless work at that time. That's but some approaches like from heart to heart with the resource person in the village, you know, that's respective all these, and then also the respective people in the villages. Then those are kind of understand and they spread it to the young generation, and then we have a local young generation to work with us, to help us actually. And then it takes it's depend on the space. It's a spatial, the area actually. It's sometimes we take a 3 months, 6 months, year, you know, doing the mapping. And then along the way, we actually got a lot of kind of sharing between the young generation and old generation. Where is the area of the, for instance, like the village of Tenganan, why we have this area, or there was a story behind it, and then along the way, how they actually tagging the boundaries, you know, there's a kind of a symbol of nature boundaries, the tree, what the meaning of it. It's kind of a life education from the old to the young generation, you know. But then Along the way, also we do a kind of participatory research, rapid appraisal. We put on a database of the socio-cultural of the villages, and then by the end, it's we talk with the villages. This in the near future, you will see your village and then people in different ways. I mean, like how you see in the web and then internet. The internet thing at that time is beyond. And then after finish the data we put on the database, on the web, on the digital thing. Then we watch what they've been doing with the villages together. This is your work. This is gonna be seen by people all over the world using internet. Then we say, wow, that's kind of a triggering life energy to the villages, to the young generation. This is my village.
And not only is it something that they can look at and remember, but you also document and archive their traditions.
Absolutely.
And you also take that information, the mapping and everything, all of that data to the government, and you work with the government to get money and grants. Is that correct?
Well, in that sense, limited to the government. This is mostly for the donor who actually has a same intention for the local people and the environmental issues and all the society issues. So that's why we formulate our idea and then also propose for the funding, because this takes time, involving people, and then also need the logistic.
Plus you need specialized expertise. You need people who can.
Yes. The way we do actually is we got a kind of network for the mapping expertise. We have a kind of training of trainers for the time being, and then we got first, and then we also got a training for the community organizing, actually CO concept, how actually we organize the mind of the people toward the goal we set up together along the way, And then afterward, when we got that kind of expertise, we continue to the community, how we organize the spreading ideas, even though it's not so easy actually. Buying ideas, it's which is when we talk about the future, the sustainable development, it's it's different level. If you talk about from the stomach to the concept ideas, it takes time actually. There's many suspicious common things that villages actually put on our works. That's whether you're part of the investor, you're part of the broker, you're part of the you want to buy the land, many things. But I think it was lucky. In that time we work with the young generation who has not clear job in the villages. It's kind of a marginalized young generation. We talk like this and then discuss, and then they have time, they have energy. There's no one in the village, and then in the end, until up to now, is I can see is most of our what you call it, our young generation who we develop their capacity become it's kind of a young generation who now become a leader of the village.
Yeah. And
because
that's perfect.
they got information, they got knowledge, they got capacity, they know people, they know the concept, and then they become the leader of the villages.
They're more connected as well. Traditionally, the older generation was less connected. As the island has grown and matured with tourism, it becomes more connected.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's from the Wisnu perspective. This is our school. It's living school.
Yeah.
It's chapter by chapter, different village, different chapter. Because the character in Bali, even though we can say that Bali is a kind of enclave Hindu island. It's a very small island. But if you go deeper, every village has different way of dealing with their nature and culture. It's very unique actually.
Yeah.
Even though this neighborhood villages, for instance, like I can mention about Tenganan village in the eastern part of Bali, and then just next in Sibotan. Just what's next by by village, and then it's very different.
Yeah.
Tenganan is very traditional village who has a different way of managing their own space, their own forest, their own rice field, their own culture. They have a customary law. It's very they have a different structure of managing their village, the power. They have their own way of weaving, traditional weaving, double ikat, double tie. It's very beautiful. Next to the village is Sibotan, which normally just produce a salak. It's different way. It's very interesting. For us, it's really, wow. This is kind of it's kind of downloading a new creative way along the way, the community dealing with their own nature and culture.
I like the way you explained it. Wisnu is your school for you as the student.
Yeah, I suppose say mommy, and then I also spread with the staff normally with the community. This is my school,
It's an
my
amazing
living school.
opportunity. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
And so, fast forward, you've got now you're doing coffee work as part of it. And so what do you do with villages as far as coffee production, working with that, in addition to like you do ecotourism,
Right.
and kind of connected with the coffee?
Well, it's if we try to bound the concept of approaching of the Wisnu Foundation, is we not only dealing with the spatial, but we deal with the database of, for instance, like what kind of natural resources to support their life. This is about the sustainable livelihood within the villages. It's we identify natural resources that belong to the villages, privately or communal way. And then second, we identify about the human resources, what kind of talent they have, music, dance, craft, it's innovation in the village. And then we also deal with the social capital, what kind of thing, it's very kind of like a big temple, how can villages develop this kind of artistic and very nice temple. This is a social issue. Yeah. They do it gotong royong, we call it in Indonesia. Everybody can giving what they have. This is a kind of sharing. This is. We also have identified about the kind of infrastructure they use to run the mechanism of social issues. For instance, like Balai Banjar, we call it a hamlet, where they actually has a place of meeting, how they make a decision, and then how they make a plan.
Their social organization.
Social organization, it's a subak, and also if we go to the subak, how actually the infrastructure of the conduit, everything, it's so much knowledge, so much knowledge, then it's very sometimes amazing. Wow, this is the knowledge actually. Even though if you go to the mountainous area, how the local people at that time with very limited technology, they make a tunnel to connect one source of water to the villages. Wow. Yeah, in this and then also as how they. If we talk about the economic thing, about the money management, how actually it's they manage the foundation and the local, how they have a local group managing their own activities, money distribution, how the shaping concept from the cattle, pig, chicken, and everything. That's kind of become our source of data. So this is the kind of concept, and local people, they manage their own sustainable livelihood. It's the connection between human and nature, human time and space. That this is we put on the database of the villages, so that then if you want to come to the tourism industry, this is your village, this is your resources, this is data, this is your nature and culture. How how do you think about the tourism industry in Bali? Even though everybody in the village, they want tourism industry, but what kind of tourism industry in your imagination?
Yeah, what does it look like?
Yeah, what does it look like? Actually, tourism is, the image is very various. It's a clean energy, a clean industry, and a very smiling industry.
Yeah.
And everything is glitter. But when you go beyond it, you can see. There's also issue on conflict of interest in the land use, water, everything.
Yeah.
Then we took the villages to the hotel, to the Nusa Dua, to the Kuta. Do you like this? Nusa Dua, you like this, or some like maybe like places like a big project. Then we talk together with them, analyzing about the needs of the tourists, how the investment flows actually, foreign investment done here in Bali. They make their own hotel, own restaurant, a travel agent, and all the money back to the original of the country. Then what do you get? And then that is kind of a perspective, in terms of water use, what compare your use with the hotel use. What you got actually. And then it's kind of broaden the perspective and then experience. Then they decided, then okay, if you are interested in running kind of a tourism industry, whether you like the thing like Nusa Dua, Kuta, Sanur, do you have that kind of stuff, or you have already plenty thing in the villages? If you compare Nusa Dua and your village, it's the same resort. Nusa Dua is only they build a hotel to become a resort. Here you have a big resort already. You have houses, you have beautiful environment, you have nice people, you have culture, you have everything. Just a matter how you now relate that kind of thing into your village. If you have a spare houses or spare room, you can make a guest house or stay. If you want to do the activities, don't do an artificial thing like the hotel.
Yeah.
You have your own culture.
Scale it into what you have.
Scale it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why the decision become, we can make a village ecotourism, village ecotourism. But because we deal with many villages, so we make a network. So because it owns villages has the uniqueness, different uniqueness. So that's why we do a network. Those who are interested in learning something or experience something, we can connect for a mountainous area or cultural villages or beach area. So that we tailor-made the concept of those tourists who are interested in knowing the villages, so that you can make many packages.
Yeah.
Within your village.
I think that's very forward thinking. Like, if you think about how COVID has impacted the tourist industry in Bali, and some of the ways that the Balinese governor wants to react, after the loss of so many tourists, so many Balinese got to remember what it was like before tourism was so big. And in a way, they kind of got the island back, right? So now people can see, maybe we don't need to scale it up so big, and maybe we can keep it smaller and look for a better quality tourist than having so many poor quality tourists.
Right. Yeah, it's if we can reflect, after more than 25 years, I mean that's. The words of quality tourism, and interest tourism, we can kind of feel it, it's along the way. Actually, it's very difficult to buy in ideas of that. because we against the main mass tourism, which people want to get fast money, and then it's because for COVID we can feel it. It's quite difficult actually, and local people also kind of it's hesitate of what we have been doing. It's almost no time to talk about that kind of stuff. Even though it's we do understand about the time concept in Bali also. It's if you deal with the tourism industry, because the time is money, and traditionally time is not merely money, because we have many things. What's the kind of spectrum about the time,
This is something I want to talk more about, because you talked about this with me a while ago, and I find it a fascinating topic. The last time we met, another gentleman came, and he was talking. I believe he was talking about he worked with men in suicide, and you or he were talking about how difficult it was, kind of the clash or the contact between the Western concept of time and the Balinese concept of time, and how it's difficult for the Balinese to incorporate the rigidity and the structuredness of the Western notion of time. Time is money.
Yeah, and the big word, the time is money, is like, it's so much conflict actually in managing the life.
You're late.
Yeah.
You're late.
Yeah, it's if you being a Balinese, if you see the calendar, the Balinese calendar is different than the Gregorian calendar, yeah.
Very much.
Right? You can see when the day off here, when here is not the day off. You're more busy here, and then it's spending of money, time is different. How split, If you are not mature enough in managing your psychology, you get mad, and in the end you can suicide.
Yeah.
That's the fact actually, from the statistical data I got from a friend of mine who deal with that. It's the rate of suicide in Bali is increased, even though it's many countries also got the same issue. But yeah, it's kind of issue also, But yeah, back again to the one of the, for instance, like commodity that we deal with, like coffee, because we identify what kind of sources or commodity which identified in the villages, this become a spot of your way of life, or live what you call it, livelihood. For instance, like Plaga, we deal with Plaga. They produce coffee. Coffee has become a major kind of crop for them, and then coffee become a kind of product that they can treat as a saving. When they need it, they sell it. And then
Sell a bag of beans when you need.
Yeah, that's this kind of management. Then we try to approach. If so, then we the way we do actually, we discuss, and then we discuss about the value, the commodity, because this is the main thing. It has to be kind of main concern also, they discuss. And then the process of, and then we discuss about what kind of clone you plant here, how the harvest, how the treatment, everything, what the cost, what the issue actually you're facing along the way, and then we got some information, at least from the small, limited skill, limited expertise also. At least we got information. If you want to increase the value of your coffee, then you can treat your own soil better, and then trimming better, and then pick up red kind of cherries part, and then you trim it like this, and then
Step by step.
by step, and then that's from a small scale is makes sense for them, and then they actually we practice that kind of stuff, and then from the production of the coffee, actually it's proven that the taste of the coffee better, and then the value appreciation is better. So then we try to connect the production of coffee from Paga to our network in the villages. So it already respond quite good, you know. It's because this is good coffee and then tastes better. I mean that even though it's not perfect, but it's already better quality. And yeah, that's why next we develop the village economy network, you know, and then we can from Plaga coffee will go barter to Tenganan. Tenganan produce a lot of rice to connect.
So they start trading.
Yeah, the issue for us is as a small NGO is distribution is not simple thing, you know. That we have to do good analysis, but yeah, in the end we cannot because it's very limited commodity. It doesn't work. But even though this appreciation is already there, you know. For instance, like in Tenganan, they have a 250 hectare of rice field, which they can produce their own rice. Village itself is already self-sufficient. They surplus, you know. This kind of surplus they can manage as a economic value. And then we also introduce how to make a green organic rice. We introduced the what's it called micro hydro, because they have a good micro hydro rice huller, you know. It's in the concept technically it's okay, but you know, to maintain this as a way of life and how the management work well among villages, it's not simple.
No, but it's fascinating that you're taking pieces of knowledge, you're recording it, you're learning it, you're recording it, you're archiving it, but then you're sharing it, so you're transferring knowledge from one village to another. So if one village produces rice better, you're able to take that as a package, so to speak, of knowledge and share it with somebody else.
Yeah, that's the ideas for us seem like we'll be connected, but for the community, whether it's practical sufficient or profitable for them, it's enough for them, that's another story, right? And then even though here we were sitting in the place here, I call it a Geo open space, because this is kind of ideas to connect agricultural stuff to the industrial stuff. For instance, like tourism industry, because behind me, we call it southern part of Bali, is Hita. We deal with the stomach and the ready to drink, ready to eat, right? And not this is a producer, mostly like agricultural production. So this place is kind of leveling up how we actually connect from the supplier, from the producer to the consumer. You know, it's this is an idea. You know, how we do a kind of exhibition here. We connect from the producer, from villages, and then also the customer from hotel, everything. You know, then if this kind of a connection agreeable, and we can make a consistent kind of consensus, we can make a kind of agreement. You know, but still this is a concept. But the for me, infrastructure is already here. We slowly practicing. Now, if we talk about coffee, same thing. You know, from how we actually develop the coffee quality, coffee production, coffee processing in the village, and then next we have a school of coffee here to you know, to save the kind of the appreciation, the quality, QGID of the coffee, and then how we connect to the buyers. So this is the concept of traceability, you know, and then chains of custody, because so far we deal with you know, it's being a farmer is you know, is always marginalized, poor, got nothing, always the middle person who's got the most, you know, yeah. You know, that's true traceability. There's a kind of advanced technology. You know, we can develop the platform through the digital Internet of Things. You know, we can connect it. So that's why it's this is a place of villages. We think that's a geographical information, IG indication of geographies. Even though through the concept of government is a more bureaucratic thing. But if we can develop from community or villages, can be actualized because those farmers who are understand about the concept, the connection, the traceability, we can connect them to the net. Then that they can become got an advantage of what they've been doing through their farming to keep the quality, everything.
They become a part of the program, a part of the system. They're less isolated.
Absolutely. And then digital is really actually the concept of digital can, do it very detailed. How you can through the platform, how the buyer appreciate the farmer, if they want to get a bonus, everything. The farmer understand about that part, and then also how we also appreciate buyers who actually give a donation. Everything is all in the point. Everything is now the system is very helpful. So that's why even though I developed the Geo Coffee, the concept of how we connect from the space of living where people work to the world, it's slowly the technology I can see this is connecting. That's why this is gonna be a good way of make a fair trade, make a fair of living from the buyer to the consumer, everything.
It's bringing the tree Hita Karena into it. It's balance. You have the balance.
Yeah, that's the thing, It's how to implement that's the kind of outstanding value into the reality. It's even though we are very remote in the villages, you can connect to people who are interested in your product all over the world.
Right. I think that's something that's unique to producing countries like Indonesia or Colombia or any of the others, where people who live in the country are so geographically, spatially close to the producers. It facilitates that much better.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are in Indonesia, one of the mega biodiversity. You can see we have almost everything.
Yeah.
But just to need the mechanism how to connect this into the world. That's not merely for the profit's sake, but this is a kind of humankind prosperity.
Yeah, we need to add meaning to it. It needs to have meaning.
That if you deal with the we call the mechanism of capitalism, for instance, like you provide a patent, everything. Well, this is kind of indication, geographical indication is also one of the, can be individual patent, because everybody, personally, every farmer can develop their own product. But because they live in the communal space, so this is kind of a communal property right. There is kind of contribution, because they not only, when they grow coffee, they not only live for the sake of coffee, but because the socially they connected. Yeah. So the feelings of the coffee thing, they can be part of them, or a very small portion, can be put on the deal, become a kind of a communal property right. So they can maintain their own way of living, and then also continuing.
That's a really good point. I'm certainly guilty of this, and I'm sure that it's a common thing for people in the West, where they think that coffee is everything. There's a farmer over there in Indonesia, and I'm in the U.S., and all he cares about is the coffee that he's growing, and that's not the case.
It's in Bali. It's not single thing. It's stand alone. We are connecting, and we are in the diversity country, and it's a mega biodiversity. And if you think about the biodiversity, right? If you see the ocean, the forest,
Mountains, you have
mountain, yeah. I used to work 5 years with the Biodiversity Foundation. So at least I got a kind of information. Wow, this is the base of living actually. Yes, we can feel the world if we actually connecting here and there. It's not greedy thing. You see what there, what you need, and then as long as the fair kind of relation, it has to be the proportion. Yeah.
Puts a new meaning to value chain. Puts value and meaning in the chain.
Yeah.
The network.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of. I said not a long way. 28 years ago, it's not long. Yeah. It's not, but it's a kind of a school of living. Is at least for myself, and the staff here in Bali and the community. We spread the kind of ideas, connecting ideas. Even though it's the parcel can be cut partly probably, but there has to be kind of system now to help connecting them, and everybody can see it. This is technology, so that's why now the time actually go to the platform concept, and also every change, every stakeholder, they can connect the value.
Is the program popular with the farmers? The technology aspect and the connectedness of it, is that popular with the farmers?
Well, there has to be a kind of effort actually. It's not only. I mean that's it's we deal with many stakeholders, different. It's if you go to scholar, sometimes scholar perception is also different. If you go to government perception is different. They're different vested, right? Different interests. Your community, it's we can say it's not that far, but at least they do understand about what kind of work hard they actually put on their effort producing thing, but it's still not balanced, not enough. It's I used to do a kind of village accounting, demand and supply. It's not balanced. It's
binary too.
Yeah, it's not balanced. How can you live with balance like this? With the concept of the previous living is balance. You can produce, for instance, like coffee. You can produce coffee once a year. How much coffee you produce? If you calculate, it's not balanced. This has to be a kind of a mechanism to give them. Okay, I want to be a coffee farmer. I have the face of land like this. I can produce this quality. I can show if you connect this, they're committed to make a best quality of it, and then they can do a competition. Because I'm sure in the villages, farmer in Bali is very diligent, very, and also art. If how they share the love to their own rice field or their own nature, and also we have a ritual for that. How we respect the nature, the plantation, the animal.
Yeah, Indonesia itself is still very agrarian, but then the Balinese have a special mystical, spiritual connection with nature on top of the agrarianness of Indonesia, and it's an interesting connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Because in the Balinese we humanize the nature. It's we are the same. Okay. There's a tree that they bring us oxygen, and it's kind of always. It's. We've been told that this is our first brother. Actually, they cannot move. They grow. They bring everything for us. And then it's second brother is our animals, and then we are. Declare ourselves as a superhuman, but not really super actually.
I remember when one time we were sitting up in Geo Cafe, and you told me I grew up with this tree.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting phrase to use. I grew up with this tree, because in the West we don't necessarily say that tree's been. They might say the tree's been in the family, but it's not the same as saying this is a brother of mine, or I grew up with this tree.
Yeah, that's why it's different culture, different different way of life in Bali, because like You know, if you are in Bali, now you are in Bali, you know, it's so many offering. Offering in Bali is a kind of appreciation, you know, appreciation, bhakti we call it. But the material of offering is connected to nature, you know.
Flowers, some rice.
Flowers, coconut leaf, because you know, even the tuak and arak, tuaks come from palm leaf, you know, everything is all collecting. Because we deal with the same major element of ourselves and nature is we have a prithvi or earth, all solid stuff. We have apa, we have water, liquid stuff. We have teja, we have light, sun. We have vayu, we have air, everything, and we have a space. So there's a major content of ourselves, micro and macro. It's the same thing. If we are too greedy, explore first and then exploit, and then we exploit ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the balance concept we inherited from our ancestors. You know, I mean that's why, you know, being a local people is, and see the context of the manage, they carve the nature, you know, how they in tune with the nature. This is at fun. You know, this is at fun way of life. You know, it's
It keeps you mindful.
yeah.
It keeps you aware of what you're doing. When at our house in Jimbaran, we needed to cut down a tree, a big tree, and there had to first be a ceremony or an offering to the tree, and that slows things down. That keeps you aware that you're cutting down a tree that's been here for years, and like you say, it's full of resources. It's a part of the same system we're a part of.
So, yeah, that's mostly I've been doing with the Wisnu Foundation nowadays. Yeah, try to at least in my mind, and also systematically way of thinking actually is how actually we connect from one locus next chain, one chain to chain, and connecting and work out. It's a, well, we can say a big kind of big project, but it's not so big actually. It's here. It's connecting actually.
I think you're being modest. I think it is a big program. How many villages do you work with?
For the time being, more than 20 villages, almost 30 actually, all for Bali.
That's great.
Yeah, at least we have different type of villages.
Yeah.
And nowadays we work very closely with 4 villages. It's considered of indigenous community in Tamblingan, because they very respect their forest. They call it hutan mertojati. It's really mertojati is a essence of life, the forest of essence of their life, because they can conserve the water, the Tamblingan, and also they have the 1,300 forests. Now we try to make advocation to bring it back their forests from the government.
Is this the one that you mentioned on the website where I think there's a CNN video where they worked for a long time to get the forest recognized by the government?
Yeah, that's Tamblingan.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, the CNN is Tenganan Pegeringsingan. This is another one, because this forest is already what's called managed by the government. We would like to take out, and then this is the communal kind of community forest.
Yeah, I toured some farms in I think it was in Sumatra, and the coffee farms were on national land, national parklands, and they were in this massive rubber tree forest. It was beautiful, but because it was all government owned, all of the farmers had to pay 15-20% of their harvest every year to the government.
Yeah, there are many schemes of the government now in terms of their renewing the management of the forest. You know, there's a social forest. This is a traditional village forest, like Tenganan, which is within the boundaries of the villages, traditional village. They have their own small forest. So this is they've been contributing the oxygen orology system to the area been so many years. Now the government has to be recognized them. You know what kind of the program, everything. And there are also forests that used to belong, belong to the community, occupied by the government. How they take it back. That, and also kind of hutan desa atau village forest, those villages that located just next to the forest. How instead of the, in the illegal logging, everything, how the government recognize them, how they can manage the forest. And also there's a kind of productive forest, everything. There's a scheme of the forest management by the government. It's kind of a new way of dealing with the forest. It's getting more, because not all the forests belong to the government actually. It's many things like people like in Papua New Guinea, Kalimantan, Papua Barat, Irian, and also Kalimantan, Sulawesi. They used to have a traditional forest.
Yeah, and this is an issue that's going to be more prevalent with the expansion of palm oil industry. When COVID hit and the Balinese governor said he would like to expand the agriculture industry, my first concern was them bringing palm oil to Bali. Do you think that there's any possibility of that?
Better not to expand the palm oil in Bali. We have a very small, nowadays also we got a very hard kind of effort how we manage the balance of spatial of the island. We has yet to reach the ideal proportion of the forest in Bali. We still under the 20% supposed to be the forest covered, but we now in 22%, so we still under. That's why we promote how you now determine forest, because we have a kind of a small mosaic forest within the area, for instance, because this is the kind of concept in Balinese. If you deal with the rice field, they always within the rice field there is a kind of a mosaic of the small forest, because this is maintains a food chain. When the harvesting, the bird goes to the forest and then get nesting, and then the snake there, everything. It's kind of cyclic. Now, by the modern way of life, way of thoughts, and then you go there and make a villa there. Yeah, your friend is a mouse, a snake, everything, because this is the habitat of them. In the mosaic of. Ecological mosaic of the rice fields. It's not only the rice, but they're also ravine and then the forest.
It's a full ecosystem.
Yeah, that's kind of ecosystem. And ritually, we have a kind of we call it kartamasa, how we plant rice, other crops, horticulture. So to cut the pest cyclic, I think it's. With traditional way of doing things, they know they live with the nature, they live with the snake, they live with the mouse. The thing is how this, it's superhuman how they can manage that. It's not superhuman how you just kill them. You kill them and then you cut the chains and you got the massive pest. It's been through along the way.
Yeah, it's that natural tension that we want between the breaks or the slowing down of traditional conservative way of life, and also you want the pull or the acceleration of progress and change and development, but you need to find that balance
Yeah.
between the two, where you're not going in and clearing out huge amounts of forest
Right.
in order to develop some agricultural product.
Yeah,
We-
absolutely. Because it's the culture of Bali is not static. It's a the change. So that's why now is the time to shift to the next balance. Because in that sense, how we, and our our ancestors has already proven their way of life to do what you call it, acculturation about the new thing through creative way of expressing it. It's just a matter of how actually, even though we overwhelmed with the various information, it's to develop way of thinking toward the next balance of living, because we often opportunity to the world. It has to be a new way of communication, new way of connecting everything. It's this we need way of maybe way of communication, a method of communication, a new narrative. So that's, even though you live in the village, that you part of the dot connect to the to the world.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting the way you frame it as the next balance. It's you put a bookend to it. It's like a chapter in a book, or a bookend on a shelf, and you say, okay, we have a delineation here, and the next balance is, what do we do next? So what do you see with the villages you work with and the impact of coronavirus? What do you see as the next balance? What would you like to see?
Well, yeah, this is the kind of dynamic of yeah. I mean, it's a big lesson for Bali actually. It's even though the trigger of tourism industry is speeding up kind of way of life, and then all of a sudden stuck, it's and the nature of the culture in Bali is not frozen in a freeze, this is dynamic. I mean that the elasticity, and also the, what you call it, the resilience of the structure of our culture in Bali. It's even though Bali is the big hit on economic construction in Bali. It's the lowest. We have a minus 12% of development in economic. But village culture is still a home for us to rethink again, to think about the next shifting of balance.
Yeah, you had a contraction. So you had, like, my wife works with, she's a general manager of a hotel, and so she has employees who aren't necessarily from Kuta. They're from villages around Kuta. And when employment got tough, when they had to start telling people we can't employ you full time, there was this expansion kind of away from Kuta of those people. They went back to their home village. It's interesting you talk about the speed before COVID and then the speed afterwards. And so she saw a lot of people going back to farming, going back to working with the family, because you have the extended family living at home.
Yeah, it's that's, I mean that, it's, that means that village is still their home. It's, if you use very stress and then pasar, there is still hope there. That's, I can see that this is a kind of a mechanism that's been developed to deal with the issues, and then they make the resilience of their life is still in the villages, you know, it's in the hometown we call it, or back to the village. It's still, you know, if they're keen enough to see the spending, you know, living in the urban compared to the village, you know, you can see as you have to rent a house here, the transportation, communication now both in city and the village is the same, you know, source of food, you know, come to the village, you know, you get a fresh, some still organic, and then you don't have to buy, you know. It's stressful in the city, lose the job. There is a hope in the mechanism of the community, and the living in the community is still, you know, it's a kind of a sharing, still like a social capital of that, you know, it's still there, you know.
I heard some interesting stories along those lines. It might have been around an eruption, maybe Agung, and the people who were nearest to the mountain had to flee away from it, and the neighboring communities took them in, shared the resources that they had, and so there wasn't this massive stress on the government per se to help people out, because the people were already being helped out by the smaller communities, the smaller banjo.
That's kind of local and social setting. Yeah, it's actually, it's quite, for me, it's quite futuristic, you know, in terms of, because they do understand about the nature of our country, the nature of the island is very, it's many kind of social disaster, everything, you know, it's the setting of every villages, every temple, every communal houses, you know, it's, if there is a disaster, it's kind of open. This is your place, temporary to shelter everything. Is instead of bringing big tent, everything we are here and there, it's difficult. Now in Bali, it's sometimes they have a family here in Denpasar, come by and then stay for a while and then go back. You know, that's kind of setting. I think it's very dynamic.
Yeah,
you know,
it's very social and it's very open.
Yeah, in that sense, yeah.
And I wonder how much of it is tied to ego and trust, right? So I think about in the West, when that happens, something like that happens, there's some trust issues. You think about, like, I try and put myself in the shoes of somebody who is receiving another family into my home, and there's the trust issue. It's very personal and intimate, my home space, and I wonder how much of that is related to that ego and trust.
Well, I think it's this culturally speaking. As long as they do believe on the karmic system, karma power. It's that. I don't know, young generation, whether how, because the school of thoughts now, or what they can get from the school is different. It's not merely the value of the culture, you know. It's this is just a mechanism dealing with the knowledge, the time, the technology. That's why I mentioned about this. We need the shifting of balance, you know. It doesn't mean that it's a single kind of shifting. This is a kind of in what you call it? It's a kind of complex system. You have to, yeah. So that's I think it's yeah. That's for me myself. You know, it's, as long as we still stick on the karma concept. You know, we do believe that we live only a short time. You know, it's we can do a good thing. It's make a, because we believe in a reincarnation. You know, it's not one's life. You know, well, it probably. This is a kind of good karma we can do for the next life. That's kind of, if that kind of concept of living is still there, I think it's well, the sharing is a part of the.
Yeah, that could be something. That could be one of Bali's contributions to the world through tourism, is sharing that karmic way exposing the tourists who come here from the West, from wherever, that they don't necessarily have that in their day-to-day life, and to see it and to understand. They may not necessarily have to agree with it, but they can see the benefits of it, and they can say, well, you know, maybe I can incorporate some of that into my life moving forward.
Yes. So that's kind of it's from Bali, small island. What actually value can be shared to the world? You know, for instance, like well, when I show the movie of COVID, the lockdown. You know, I remember we used to propose when the United Nations framework conference on climate change. You know, we try to introduce. Bali has the mechanism of Nyepi. You know? It's a one-day pool, 24 hours. We cut down, at least we calculated from the access Gilimanuk harbor, and then also Padang Bay, Benua, and also use of traffic, everything. 22,000 tons of CO2 cut one day. You know, it's why don't we try? You know, it's we need a rest. Nature also has the mechanism. You know, to this kind of stuff. You know, it's from the small island. I think it's if you want to see deeply, it's contemplate. It's just something.
Yeah, it's a good message. Very good message.
Something we can learn each other and share.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate this. This has been incredibly enlightening.
My pleasure. This is kind of karmic kind of composition. Why do actually happen now? You know, before COVID, after COVID.
Yeah.
We've been trying to make many kind of time to discuss, to share. You take a YouTube, I think, but cancel, and now it's.
It's tough. You know, you have schedules. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about, where the rigidity and the structure of the Western life versus the openness, the flexibility of the Balinese life. That's absolutely what we ran into there. And then COVID.
I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. It was really good.
Yeah. Good.